This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/red5.
Hey, this is Jedi Master Rob LaBarre, host of the Jedi Temple Archives podcast, and you're listening to... Wait, hold on 1 second. What the Force? Hey, aren't you Dr. Sonny Ravencourt of the University of Coruscant?
Nope.
No, you absolutely are. I recognize you. No, you were in the archives not too long ago. I believe you were on a tour. A guided tour. Look, here's the deal. This temple is not open to outsiders without escort. So you're going to just have to move right along, or I'm going to have to get Jedi Temple security.
Oh, come on. I can't get this kind of information at the University of Coruscant. Look at this transcription. This Jedi was murdered.
All right, that's it. We're not going to have this conversation. Padawan, please go get the temple guards.
Oh, I really don't think you need to call Jedi secure. Okay, here they come. I gotta go.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Goodbye, Dr. Ravencourt. All right, sorry about that. Where was I? Oh, right. And you're listening to ConverSWation's podcast with Pat and Charles.
ConverSWations. It's a translation to a Star Wars nation. It's a celebration.
Hello, and welcome to ConverSWations. I'm Charles.
And I'm Pat, and this is take 13 of episode 102. Throughout the galaxy, there are many diverse worlds, from those with lush green, snow-covered plains, to dense forestry and exotic bioluminescence, I got it that time, but none with the rich warrior history of Mandalore.
Oh, yes. Mandalore.
I feel like it's pretty pertinent right now.
Absolutely is.
There's like a show about a guy from there.
Yeah, The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry.
Right. Yes. Well, I mean, that guy's kind of from there. He's a foundling. And it's been a while since we did a planet.
Yes, it has been. And like you said, very pertinent and figures to be a central plot point for Season 3 of The Mandalorian and, Season 2.5 of The Mandalorian as well. So Mandalore itself is in the Outer Rim territories, in the sector of Mandalore, in the Mandalorian, the Mandalore system as well.
What? Are you kidding me?
They're so self-centered. It's not funny.
They surround the sun.
The sun, that's right.
The Mandalore sun.
Self-centered.
Oh, self-centered. Yes.
But they're in like a new territories area, like a region called the new territories of
but system. That was like a while ago. So now they're like the normal territories.
Right, just so big and so important. Okay.
Or the old territories. Because they were discovered a while ago.
Right. They're new at one point now. They're just like...
Right. Exactly.
Now they're just called territories.
Exactly. Yes. So the Mandalore system has a couple of planets. It's got Mandalore and Kalevala.
Mm-hmm.
Which sounds like something that we could get down with.
Tasty dessert.
Yeah, like baklava. And there's Mandalore's moon, Concordia.
Yes. Now, there's two moons. But the second one, I couldn't find any name to it. It was referred to just as a second moon.
You know why? Because that's no moon. It's a space station.
No, of course. That's always them. But yes, Concordia.
It's okay. Many smugglers have made that mistake.
And not many of them live to tell the tale.
No, sir.
But yeah, Concordia, that's going to be a huge part of Mandalore's story for sure. What's... Ooh.
You okay?
Yeah.
You going to make it through?
Yes.
All right, don't worry, I got this. So Mandalore itself is composed mainly of forests and jungles and mountains, but do not fear, because there's also lakes and seas.
Okay.
You know what else there is?
Scorched earth.
The Siege of Mandalore, which took all of that away, and now it's desert and ash.
Indeed. It's also near the Hydean Way.
Not scorched earth, it's scorched Mandalore.
Scorched Mandalore, it's true. Not earth isn't earth. It's very near the Hydean Way, which...
Yeah.
It was established...
Hyperspace.
Yeah, hyperspace, exactly. And this route was established so that it could include the space around the Outer Rim planet Ariadu, or Ariadu, depending on how you want to pronounce it. which was a producer of Lomite, which is a key ingredient of Transparisteel, but it's also the home planet of Tarkin, the family Tarkin, which is really cool.
And they went there in Rogue One.
Exactly, yeah, which is really cool. And they mentioned it in first episode of Mandalorian Season 3, which is really cool. The hiding way, at least.
Right. So the first appearance, now that we're mentioning its involvement in the shows and such, it was first appeared in the Clone Wars, Season 2, Episode 12, The Mandalore Plot. Go figure.
Uh-huh.
So they go to Mandalore, and, that's the first time we see it. And this is back, of course, pre-Empire in the Clone Wars era.
Right.
So it is, as I described, with its forests, jungles, mountains, and lakes and seas.
And jewel-colored lakes.
Yes.
Now, from what I was reading through, the Mandalore Cataclysm, as it's called, happened in one of the final battles with the Jedi on Mandalore. Mm-hmm. And that really reduced the planetary's sort of flora really to, its most minimal level. And like you said, during the Clone Wars and some of the other battles, what was left of any greenery was just like stripped away and just became a sort of like wind-blown dust bowl.
Yeah, and, it bears mentioning that the Jedi and the Mandalorians were not very friendly to each other.
No, they were not.
So, to say the least. Yeah, there was the Jedi-Mandalorian War that took place.
Right.
And so there's a whole rich history between the two groups. Doesn't paint either one in a particularly good light. But
that's a great point, too, because you think that, apart from the fact that you just said it, the other side of it is, too, is like the Jedi, even before the Clone Wars, where they were sort of thrust into battle as generals and on-field officers, they were the keepers of the peace of the galaxy and had a much different role. But Mandalore and the Mandalorians always had this role of being this warring sort of society. And for the Jedi, I wouldn't say punch down to their level, but definitely meet them at where their best is in Mandalore's case, which is like warfare. And it's an interesting take on how they approach that particular society in their history.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a fine line to walk as keepers of the peace, because you have your ear to the ground, so to speak, as to what's going on, and then you've got this culture that is always ready for battle, always training, always, upping their military game and all. And so you kind of take notice to that. Maybe we got to keep our eyes on these guys because they're getting a little ahead of everybody else in terms of like their, military structure and kind of looking for a fight.
Right.
So it's like, all right, well, let's keep our finger on the pulse here and see where this goes. And, because it could very easily turn into like an Alexander the Great type of thing, where these guys are like powerful and trained and have the resources and this sort of warrior mindset that they just decide that they want to take over everything.
So what you're saying is like almost keeping him in check, like keeping a...
Right.
Okay.
So then a Jedi had to.
Right.
Because they're, they took this oath to like protect people. So that's kind of like my idea of how that all kind of came together for that, for the Mandalorian Jedi War, right? So, but the Jedi were like, all right, we got this, we got lightsabers, and wield the Force. And the Mandalorians were like, yeah, right, guess what? We have bullets, haha. So,
Beskar armor.
Right, yeah, so it's like, okay, well, like, they deflect blaster bolts with the sabers, but not bullets. So slug throwers, as they call them.
Nice.
Which is a pretty cool name for a gun.
It is
like
really
that.
Cool.
So they put down their blasters and picked up slug throwers for that war. So as I see it, the Mandalorians were like, yo, we're minding our business. You come over here, like, put down your weapons. And they're like, pry it from my cold dead fingers. And then that's how that went. So I get where Mandalore's coming from with, like, the Jedi, dude.
Yeah.
And then the Jedi are like, yeah, but these guys, we came to be like, hey, don't be starting stuff. And then they started stuff. So,
they're matching. Yeah, they're matching what they're putting out. And prior to the scorched surface of Mandalore itself, so there was a couple of beasts that were native to that planet. And the Galar and the High Galar, also known as Shriek Hawks, again, some of these sort of fantastical beasts. And of course, one of the most pivotal ones is the mythosaur and part of that lore.
Of course.
Yeah, and I had no idea that they were hunted into extinction. And I thought that was part of the the environmental catastrophe that it went through, but no.
Would you think asteroids hit it and took them all out, like the dinosaurs?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but they became sort of benchmarks of the prowess of the Mandalorians throughout the ages as a badge of honor sort of thing, a rite of passage.
Right. That's like a revered, like the mythosaur skull is like a revered symbol for Mandalorians. So I would imagine that with Din and the Mudhorn, it's like, yeah, okay, so I killed a Mudhorn. Like
Right.
that's pretty impressive.
It's
But a
very
mythosaur is like bigger and better than a Mudhorn.
And it
So
speaks to the entire culture versus just like the sort of personal experience of Din.
right, so it's like you mess with a mythosaur, you're top dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and with not many of them around, it's like, well, you find one and then you kill it, then you're even better off. Like they just hand you the Darksaber at that point.
Right. And it's funny you should mention that the Darksaber because
Funny I should mention the Darksaber.
because we have that episode what we did with Rob at the Jedi Temple Archives podcast, and we spoke about that.
You got to it before I did.
There you go.
Okay.
And we delve very deep into the history of that weapon. That's episode 48, I believe.
It was deeper than I was comfortable with, for sure.
Especially with a blade like that.
Right, exactly. That's a huge part of Mandalorian culture as well. And you've got this Mandalorian who's force sensitive, which I'm sure several of them are. But I feel as though, given the history between them, it's kind of conflicting. Because, like, all right, well, so here's the first Mandalorian Jedi, and he constructs this weapon that's unlike any other lightsaber, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Tar Vizsla we're talking about here, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine in the history books, they're like, they're careful about how they approach this guy. Because, like, listen, he's like King Mandalorian, right? But then at the same time, he's a Jedi, and we don't like the Jedi. So it's, you gotta kind of tread lightly on how you revere him through history. But pretty cool dude. And of course, he created this weapon, and then after he died, then the thing, if you listen to the episode. So now that's become like Mandalorian legend, along with the great mythosaur and things like that are ingrained in our culture as warriors.
Yeah, and like you brought up in one of our most recent episodes, in the Anatomy of a Duel between Obi-Wan and Pre Vizsla.
Oh yeah,
we had discussed when the Mandalorians raided the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. It wasn't so much about who was the winner of that Darksaber. We'll get to that sort of ascension role a bit later on in this episode. But this guy comes back with this Darksaber stolen from the Jedi Temple amid this war between the Jedi, or at least this conflict. Of course, the person who's going to have that is going to be seen as this, not as a hero, but like this ascension to the MAND apostrophe ALORE.
The Great Mandalore.
Right. So that sets in motion then that the whoever wields the Darksaber and forevermore wins it in conflict is now the leader of Mandalore. But so it became this symbol of power, and which helped rule the warring faction of Mandalore until after the centuries of conflict and the scorched surface era, that the society itself on Mandalore turned its back on violence and then put the Darksaber sort of on the back burner. And that's where we sort of pick up the story in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear Bo-Katan mention it in the season 3 premiere of Mandalorian, where she's like, listen, you still have that saber. You wave that around, they'll do whatever you want.
Yeah, and the way she said that.
Yeah, so it's almost like, yeah, if you have that, you're, King Mandalore and all this, but if you don't, good luck, man. And she puts the blame squarely on Death Watch and these other sort of extremist groups.
Yeah, the cults, as she puts it.
Yeah, that have kind of splintered off of where Mandalorian culture was going, like you said, with the pacifism with Duchess Satine and all, and really fractured the peoples of Mandalore in a way that she attributes to their downfall.
Yeah.
So, so you've got this time of war, a galactic war and the Clone Wars and everything, where like literally every system is made to take a side. And, Mandalore comes with Satine at the helm and says like, we're peaceful, we're not getting involved in any war.
Yes.
Which kind of allowed them to stay out of it, rest of the universe's problems. So they were like, we take care of ourselves. We're not fighting anybody or anything. So leave us alone. And they kind of got away with it for a while, but at the expense of their own people.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, she announced that, we're pacifists, and most of them were like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, no. We've been, like, generations upon generations of warrior culture. And you're like, nah, we're going to sit this one out. And they're like, what?
You can take your warring culture and go to the moon of Concordia. How about that?
They were like, we will. And they packed up their Beskar and left.
That's exactly it. And Satine Kryze, she formed the New Mandalorians government that, was a more pacifist, like you said, they were neutral. And that was the backbone of their sort of new society. Is they're not going to take any positions. They're not going to be a warring culture anymore. They're going to do what's best for their own planet and hopefully be able to coexist with all sides and still flourish. And like you said, it lasted for a while, but that planet unfortunately became ripe for the picking. And what was really interesting when I was reading about this is that like some point before the invasion of Naboo, when the Civil War erupted on Mandalore, Naboo, it's just Naboo, and Civil War erupted on Mandalore, they sent Qui-Gon Jinn and Padawan Obi-Wan to Mandalore. Yeah. And they spent a year there and protected Satine.
Yeah.
As the insurgents attempted to kill her and the group and bounty hunters being like chasing them all over the place, which I found really interesting.
So, and Jedi had this really bad idea of like, hey, see this good looking woman in power? Let's get some like teenage stud to hang out with her, and then they can't have attachments, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll get over it, no problem.
Like, how many times do they have to do this stuff before it comes back to bite them? Twice.
That we know of.
Right. So Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan go, and they protect her. It's like verbatim what happened with Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Yeah,
and so it's like, oh, there's this Satine and this stud, Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
So it's like, of course she fell for him.
Right.
And of course he fell for her because she was cool and everything.
Of course.
But he had the sense, not to unhilt his saber, as it were. And, just kind of kept that one under wraps.
Or under cloth, yeah.
Right, exactly. Under tunic. So what happened was, when we flashed, this is all in like literature.
Yes, right.
So then we flash forward to the Clone Wars, and it's like, oh, Obi-Wan is here on Mandalore, and there's Satine. He's like, sup, girl? And she's like, yeah. They got that history, and you're
yes.
like, all right, okay, I see where you're at, So it's one of those things where, like, it didn't come back to bite you this time.
But
don't do it again.
Exactly.
And then what do the Jedi do? They do it again.
And what's interesting is that they don't mention anything about age when Qui-Gon was...
Yeah, but he was a Padawan, so
he was a Padawan. Yeah, he was younger.
And it was before Phantom Menace, so
right.
He was like, what, like 20 in Phantom Menace?
Yes, exactly. So he could be between 15 and 20, because this is prior to the... So
where the hormones are flying.
Exactly. And now then you project then that to Satine, who, we've seen it already with Padme, who was a strong female character. She very well could have been leading the Mandalore society from a younger age, so that the age gap could have been totally fine. Because when I first read that, it's like, oh, are we cradle robbing again, or crash robbing in this case? But it doesn't necessarily mean that at all. And it's very interesting that the seeds of that relationship, whether it's romantic or just professional, it certainly seems romantic, especially in the Clone Wars. The framing of it is very, like you said, very reminiscent of Anakin, and so it was not refreshing, but it was like, here we go, like here's a repeat of the story.
It's not refreshing at all.
No.
And that's the whole like, why would they do that with Anakin and put him in such a precarious position? Well, because they have a long and storied history of doing that and putting young Padawans in a precarious position.
Who knows this is one of his trials?
I failed, Master. I'm sorry, Master.
But I can't blame
He
you.
was too sexy, Master. It starts off when you see them together in the Clone Wars that, like, you already know, like, they got some stuff going on.
Yes.
And, you know, it's like he's a general. He knows what's up. He knows how to be professional. And she's obviously been in the public eye for quite some time. And as a leader of this sort of new Mandalorian government, you know, she's got to have tact and everything. So they're like, oh, good afternoon, Master Jedi. You know, like, not like, what's up, Kenobi?
Yeah, playing it off as professional, but yeah, there's a
yeah,
layer
but
of it.
you can tell. You can tell the way they look at each other, the way they speak to each other. You know, you got that history there. So those bits and pieces of those sort of different factions we have, like Ben Rao and you know, Pre Vizsla, and all these different types of cults, really, that cling to certain parts of Mandalorian culture.
Yeah, and the rituals of if you got a family who's traditionally had the power, they're certainly going to try to cling on to it. So it was very fractious and very individualistic at the clan level. It made it very hard to keep all of these different families happy. And obviously, which is why, you know, it was a tough job and a tough sell to get that pacifistic society to work.
I'll tell you what else is a tough sell, mentioning Klingons on this show. Yeah, so then, of course, not to skip around and jump around, but then, you know, we've got Sabine Wren, Star Wars Rebel. You know, she's still got that sort of Mandalorian history that she's aware of. Of course, you know, with the Darksaber, she knows the whole story of that and the factions and all, and kind of how Clan Wren is its own faction. It takes its own sort of ideals from Mandalorian history.
Very powerful house, too. They got a strong say there, too, for sure.
Oh, yeah. She's, I would venture to say that she's practically royalty.
Ooh.
You know?
Ursa Wren and the whole clan there.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're like big deal.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, for her to now be in this position where she's got the Darksaber with Kanan Jarrus and all.
Yeah.
And she's learning that end of things. She's already learned all the other aspects of Mandalorian culture through her life and everything. So now to be learning that and from a Jedi perspective is interesting as well, because that's not a perspective that most Mandalorians would be offered and then learn from.
Yeah, and then what? And then throw in her Empire training, because after the fall of Mandalore and after the Empire took over, they put up an academy on Mandalore, and she was part of that. So she got some big time training in there, and unfortunately was part of a device that she helped create, you know, ironically called the Duchess. But if the House Wren came to the forefront in the Rebels era, where could that power have been wielded when Satine was going through her crisis? I mean, it really was for those years in the Clone Wars. It was crumbling, like you said. It didn't have much of a leg to stand on. She did not put Mandalore as part of the Galactic Republic. She was very hands off. In fact, she led the creation of the Council of Neutral Systems because that's the position that she wanted to keep Mandalore in. And I had no idea that was like 1,500 plus systems that were part of that. And so that represented a really strong, or at least numerous, grouping of systems. But ultimately, they still fell prey to not only their own internal strife, but external pressures, whether it be from the Republic or even CIS. And then so it was a very tenuous grasp that they had on this third position, where you're not for the Republic or for the CIS. You've got this. You're trying to hold these things together, and if only they had the support or stronger support from like Sabine's House Wren or the Saxons or all these other houses of power, they could have put up a stronger fight for it. But that didn't happen, and some nefarious character came in and took over that, and brought that into a wholly different galaxy.
Yeah, I think that's part of the issue is when you divide yourself so much, then nobody wants to get on board with anything because everyone's been so divided. So it's like, okay, now we need to band together and refute these influencers, these people from the Republic or from the CIS, and say, hey, now we've got our own thing going and all, and there is strength in numbers, and when you've alienated a lot of your people in the name of peace, eventually peace is going to deteriorate because with the nature of war and ultimately then the empire, it's like you can't stand on your own.
Right.
If you're going to fight any of this, you need to have as many resources and as many numbers as you can, because eventually they're going to come for you.
Right.
Especially a place like Mandalore that is rich in that warrior culture. It's like, I want them on my side. I want them on my side. Yeah, okay, well, then they're coming.
Yeah. And if you're trying to cut off that right hand of the warring faction and leaving the left hand to do the sort of, like the pacifist side, that's not going to work because you need that balance. She was trying to thread that needle. And unfortunately for herself, you got Prime Minister Almec during this period, who was just such an opportunistic jerk. And he was a weather vane. Whoever was blowing the wind that he needed, he followed. And that was, you have
typical politics.
Exactly. And he was out for himself in every turn. And if anybody was, a sort of ultimate undoer of any successful path, he was one of the main reasons. And he's such a jerk and such ultimately important character because those things, he was at the central part of a lot of these shifts and everything, but just a pain.
Like the worst. You're watching those episodes and you're like, oh my God, this guy gotta go.
He even looks like a jerk,
I know! Looks like one, he acts like one, he sounds like one, you're like, oh my God.
Guess what, he is one.
Yeah. Oh, you don't say. What a surprise.
Right.
Oh, Mac. That's the issue, is then you've got these people that are so convicted by the cause that they're serving, and then you've got these other people that should actively undoing what they're working towards.
Yes.
So it's like, oh my gosh, no wonder this place fell. Nobody's on the same page.
No. And unfortunately, one main character, a very important character, enters the scene because of all this disarray. And
Boba Fett.
No. And absolutely lives in chaos and thrives in it. So we're going to take a quick break.
Oh,
and
boy.
We're going to come back to that and explore just how kind of effect that he has on Mandalore.
He or she. We're not giving any spoilers.
Right. You got to tune in. You got to sit through this commercial if you want to find out the exciting finish.
Stay tuned. Same Los Cat channel, same Los Cat time.
It's perfect.
From the core planets to the outer rim, Air Anakin sets the standard for luxury hyperspace travel. Announcing our newest class of transport, the Nabari Cruiser. Each passenger will be granted Jedi Master class amenities.
Another glass of Felucian Manguese liquor, Master?
Oh, wow! Do you really think I should?
You should be fine. By the time we arrive on Ord Mantell, we'll likely be under the New Galactic Empire. I may have one with you.
So, sit back and relax. It's Air Anakin's speciality.
One-way trips to Alderaan are now 3/4 off regular price. Don't miss this high ground special.
And we're back! Now, to find out if the Mandalorians will make it out from under the thumb of the vicious Maul. Will they make it back into the favor of the Darksaber? Will they retain their strength as a warrior culture? Stay tuned to see. So stupid.
That was awesome.
Oh, man. Yes! So Maul, our favorite Maul, and all the people that don't watch the TV shows and went to see Solo were like, wait, what? And this is why. Because, in the Clone Wars, obviously, you see more of his arc. But then he swoops in and makes a whole mess of the place.
Well, he does, but, we do have to credit our favorite character for at least an assist.
Oh, boy.
Because Hondo...
Wait. Are you giving credit to or giving blame?
Because I
will
want
take the credit. I'll take credit.
So yeah, some of the underlings of Hondo ran into to Maul and Savage shortly after they were reunited, and in his charismatic way.
All right, so quick break here.
Okay.
Because it's on my mind right now. I feel like we talked about, Andor and Mandalorian and stuff and what we hope to see in the future.
Uh-huh.
And anyone that's listened to our show knows what I hope to see in live action future. So if you've seen episode 1 of season 3 of The Mandalorian, which by the time this comes out, you should have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you have not, well, you better go watch it because you're like, 3 weeks late now?
Yes.
All right, so live action. Okay, we're in the 5 to 8 years after Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how you gonna bring up space pirates and not have Hondo in the damn show?
And a guy with horns on his face.
How you gonna bring up space pirates and not have Hondo? The worst. Instead, we get Captain Seaweed Face.
Davy Jones's.
I don't want to
Davy
talk
Jones's
about
salad.
No, I don't want to talk about it. Davy Jones, he would have been like a Quarren, and that would have been fine. But no, we get this green screen Pizza the Hut nonsense. Instead of we could have had Captain Onaka.
Yeah, exactly. At least be the boss, but not even there. Yeah, so it's like
right. I get the guy that's on the ground in Navarro is not the guy. I get it. He's
but that could be his henchman. You're right.
The deck swabbers, whatever.
Right.
Okay, fine.
And that's the exact situation that we have because, when Hondo's henchmen meet up with Savage and Maul,
except these dudes got wasted.
Well, they did. Yeah,
they got blasted.
And Hondo's guys, he welcomed back into the fold because of the potential windfall of Maul and Savage's ship. But yeah, so without an assist from Hondo, we wouldn't be talking about Maul and Savage, how they intersect with the Mandalorian collapse, but which is still very, very interesting, though.
You say collapse, I say opportunity.
Opportunity collapses, you answer the door.
Yep.
So at the very end of that episode where the Maul and Savage escaped Florum, they had to take the escape pod. So they're drifting in space, basically, frozen because, of lack of environmental controls. And Bo-Katan, Pre Vizsla, and some other of the Mandalorians are space junking essentially and come upon this pod.
Space junk?
Yeah, space junking.
Lang Chung?
Yeah, no, space junking.
Oh, okay.
Searching for
space junk.
Yeah, there you go.
So now, real quick.
Yeah.
Since they were both imbued with Night Sister magic, do you think that's why they stayed alive?
Ooh, that's a great point. It's got to be because when they were leaving Florum, Savage lost his forearm, and Maul even his mechanical leg was cut off.
Wait, Savage had 4 arms?
Yeah, he's got 3.
What a shame.
But yeah, that magic, that Mother Talzin green magic was sort of escaping from their wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's totally cool. So Pre Vizsla and Bo-Katan pick up the two Night Brothers, and all chaos ensues. And immediately,
of course it does, because why wouldn't it?
Exactly.
With these guys involved, of course. I don't know why anyone's surprised.
Right. And so that kicks off in the episode, season 5, episode 1, I think, Eminence, which is that's where they first are introduced into the story. And they very quickly, and Maul, of course, using his charisma, takes over somewhat, or at least convinces Pre Vizsla that this is the right path. And then he intertwines the Black Sun, the Pike Syndicate, and the Hutt Clan as part of his base of power, Maul's base of power, while using the Death Watch, making Pre Vizsla think that, hey, I'm here for you to take over Mandalore. No, Maul's got a much bigger picture, and he definitely picks up the attention of the most important baddie in the entire galaxy eventually, with all these machinations and all these little maneuvers he's doing.
Right. Now, I think there's one big problem when you think you're the smartest person in the room, and that's the actual smartest person in the room. And that's where Pre-Vizsla ran into some trouble.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh, I've got this guy playing right where I want him. And Maul's like, yeah, okay, buddy. So that whole thing became a mess.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they had the figurehead that doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
And then you've got Maul there pulling the strings, which, I mean, you would, obviously, because he's a master string puller.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be confused with the master manipulator.
Right.
Which we'll get to later.
Very shortly, in fact.
Which we'll get to now.
Yeah. Because for all of Maul's machinations with Pre-Vizsla and what his ultimate plans were, the ultimate power in the universe being Emperor Palpatine, he sends... He's number 2.
Babu Frick.
Literally, number 2. So, many sort of things happen while Maul and Pre-Vizsla, basically they stage a coup, take over, put Satine in jail, which she then escapes from with the help of Bo-Katan and Corky, her Bo-Katan's nephew, looks suspiciously like Obi-Wan. But anyways, we won't talk about
never mind that.
Move on. She does manage to get a message to Obi-Wan, and thus is the birthplace of the Death Watch, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So we're all very thankful for that. Which all plays into Maul's master plan of revenge. Of course, this is like number one subject with himself is revenge on Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so that ultimately leads not just Pre-Vizsla, who was promised Mandalore and was basically tossed aside and
of course he was. You
Right.
think Maul ever intended to hand it over to him?
Never. He was played like a fiddle.
Stupid fall for listening.
Right. And he challenged him to a duel, and he killed Pre-Vizsla. Because Pre-Vizsla tried to be this sort of false savior for the planet, and it didn't last very long. And,
What I say about thinking you were the smartest guy in the room.
Exactly.
Bad news.
So all this happens, and then Maul sets a trap for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And very emotional set of episodes, but also...
So then next...
Yeah, we'll skip over that part.
Yeah, exactly.
We all know what happens here, but...
Don't like this part.
No. But it does raise the antenna of the Emperor, and he shows up in Mandalore and swats this down very quickly. Yeah.
He swats them around. Oh, boy.
Yeah, he kills Savage, and of course Maul does escape, but...
I mean, you look at these two dudes, and Maul, I mean, is an exceptional fighter.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then Savage is like a brute force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
So between the two of them, you got Smash and Bash. And, I mean, he is flinging them around like Sid in Toy Story. Tossing these things around.
Nice. Oh, what a
absolutely just done. And it just speaks to him, to his power, to his skill, and his ability to just decimate. You can see at first he's toying with him. You can see he's like barely got a grip on his saber and stuff, and he's like, okay, blah 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 da 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 da. And he's like, oh, this bores me. I'm tired of this. And then he just wrecks him.
Yep.
God.
And Maul is very much in the same way that Pre-Vizsla was. When you think you're the smartest person in the room.
That's right. That's right. There's only one problem. The smartest person in the room
just showed up, and his name is Palpatine.
That's right. Yep, there he is.
So he sets them back. He kills Savage, and Maul escapes. And sort of this pre-siege or coup of Mandalore is quashed. Palpatine leaves, thinking that he's going to have Almec in position, and which doesn't last very long, of course. But what was interesting is that this entire thing, Pre-Vizsla wanted Mandalore, while Maul wanted the galaxy and the power, and ultimately revenge on Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
But Maul's network of support, while they all sort of scattered once they saw that this was failing, the Crimson Dawn actually rose from this grouping, which is still a massively important group of the underworld of Star Wars, which is, we maybe need to think about doing an episode on that, because those, what do you call them? Criminal underworld, like criminal
criminal organizations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, present a really cool underbelly of Star Wars, which
for sure.
And
I love the whole business where like he comes into these mafia meetings and he's like, "Listen, you guys work for me now," and they're like, "I don't think so." So he kills most of them, and he's like, "All right, you guys work for me now," and the one guy that's left is like, "Yes, we do."
Yes,
like that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So we move on from there to the Siege of Mandalore.
Oh boy,
which was the Clone Wars saved season 7.
Yeah,
which was
that
really
was fun.
cool. Oh my god!
And then we didn't see was the Night of 1,000 Tears.
Right, because that's shortly after Order 66.
Right.
So those episodes of season 7 were fantastic, and we see from the other side, the other perspective of Order 66, and Ahsoka, who's on the planet trying to help restore it with, like you just showed me today, the 332nd Regiment of the Clone Troopers that were there, and they're laying siege to Mandalore to overtake to reestablish the proper government, and then Order 66 happens. All heck breaks loose. And at this point, the clones that were part of Ahsoka's command are now, of course, trying to find her. She escapes, of course, with Rex. And
of course she does. Yeah. She's the best.
Of course. And Rex also escapes. He gets rid of his chip.
Of course he does, because he's the Rex.
Yeah. He is the Rex. Oh man!
Yep.
And now suddenly, with all of these clone troopers on Mandalore, the planet comes under the Empire's rule. And who do they install as a regent? Basically, a puppet, Bo-Katan.
Yep.
But thankfully, she refuses to do the Empire's work. She knows what's going on.
Right.
And then
I think that has to do with the relationship that she had with her sister and her absolute defiance to even think about joining the Galactic Republic. And then when you've got like someone who's hesitant to join the Republic, and then you've got the Empire, it's like, okay, well, if she was hesitant to join them, she definitely wouldn't join these guys.
That's a great point, because how many times did Satine request assistance from the Republic, which they couldn't because she wasn't an official member?
Right, exactly.
And now that it turns into the Empire, now you've got an entire division of clone troopers basically in position. Now, am I supposed to trust you? Nah, I don't think so.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
They can't be trusted.
Right. But who can be trusted are the Clan Saxon, because they were co-conspirators with the Empire.
They can be trusted. You're absolutely right.
Right.
Good transition.
Yeah. And we see Gar Saxon in Rebels. Who's definitely sort of jerkishness of Almeki.
And that's the haircut, though.
That's true. That
it's a weird haircut.
He does. But yeah, so Clan Saxon and Gar Saxon sort of step up and sort of try and claim and actually do become sort of like the puppet leaders of Mandalore with the backing of the Empire. And then that, of course, then spawns a new civil war, so not necessarily at the same scale as the first one, but because we've got Bo-Katan and the Kryze, and she has the backing of the other families, including Clan Ren, but of course Saxon's backed by the Empire. So as we see in Rebels, they go through all these different things. Sabine's father's jailed, and then during his transport, he's freed, and then Ursa Ren comes to the forefront. And what was interesting, too, that I didn't know, that because of Sabine's association with the Empire and her work on the Duchess, quote-unquote the Duchess, which was the tool that basically was able to target Mandalorian armor, Beskar.
Which, can I say how effed up that name is?
That is extremely messed up. It's totally...
What a bunch of jerks.
Yes. I mean, for them to call it that, I mean...
Yeah, like what a bunch of jerks. So furthermore, like not to stop wherever your train of thought was, trying to dock. But
there's no docking station. Come on.
No, it's 94. It's 94.
Oh, gotcha.
It's 94. So in this time, you've got these warrior factions of Mandalore that were basically relegated to Concordia.
Yes.
Now, do you feel that in this time, when there was such political and galactic turmoil, that these factions on Concordia kind of did the covert thing and kind of laid low while the dust was settling throughout Mandalore and the galaxy, so that they could reemerge after all this crap show was finished, and then stand a chance of being a part of something?
I do, but I still think that those factious houses would ultimately have led even the warring factions on Concordia to splinter as well. I think that the society itself was unfortunately flawed. They could not relegate either side. The pacifism and the warriors, they could never meet in the middle to make sort of a whole society. There was too much of a divide. So even within, like I said, the pacifist side with Almec and his machinations and his wants, or Vizsla and his group on Death Watch, but you still have the Saxons and you still have the Wrens. Ultimately, are those goals good at the end? Yes, but they're still fighting each other for the leadership. And it took Bo-Katan with the Darksaber, raising it aloft at the end of Rebels to quasi-unite the families that were left or decimated, like the point you made. There's so many of our families are dead. We only have a few left. Well, hey, whoever's left standing, I guess let's go for it. Let's unite finally, in the old Scottish manner. But
right.
when they did do that, it was, shortly before the Purge of Mandalore. So it was almost all for naught.
Right, but they wouldn't have known that until the Empire came with their bombers and stuff,
And that's it, because, Palpatine must have been there. It's like, wow, what a messed up planet. Forget it. It ain't worth the headache. And that was where they just bombed. That's the Night of 1,000 Tears. And that's what we're seeing right now in season 3 of Mandalorian. He was so fed up with all of this faction.
Palpatine, off Savage, and Maul escapes. So as he's leaving back to his shuttle, he's like, burn it.
Another Braveheart. Burn it. But imagine the level of pain in the assery that, some sort of report that Palpatine was getting. And
sir, it appears the Mandalorians are a thorn in our side once again, sir. And he's like, oh my God.
Tell me, who's in charge of Mandalore? Let me check, sir. House Ren. Scratch that. House Kryze.
These minutes are from 2 days ago. Hold on.
Let me check Twitter. Oh, sorry. It's Clan Saxon.
It seems an organization called Crimson Dawn seems to be making this decision, sir.
Oh, man. So even with the Darksaber, and that may have been enough to unite the Mandalore for the time being, but Palpatine just grew tired of it. He didn't want to have to deal with it. He knew that, for as long as this planet was going to be around, he could not control it. He could not. It was almost like a wild
you've
card.
got these people that are too headstrong.
Yeah.
They'll support you if it benefits them.
Right.
To a certain degree. They're not going to bend the knee or anything like that, because they're no cowards. However, if being aligned with the Galactic Empire would benefit them as a planet, they would.
Right.
But the nature of the Empire is they're the only game in town.
Yes.
So it's okay, well, now we're going to squeeze more from you, and as the second the Mandalorians are like, no, you're not, then he knows he's got trouble on his hands.
Right. And if you think that Emperor Palpatine set up the Great Purge of Mandalore, you knew that, A, they had squeezed out most of the Beskar they could. B, they'd taken all of the valuable assets, beyond Beskar off the planet.
Sure.
And at this point, he's like, forget it. We've scraped this one enough. Burn it. Away you go. And that's what they did. They tie bombed it, and we've seen some of these scenes in live action of Mandalore and the Great Purge and the Night of 1,000 Tears. And laid waste, once again, the ultimate waste on Mandalore happened. at the behest of Palpatine.
What happened was, at that point, anyone who called Mandalore home or identified as a Mandalorian in any respect, whether it be creed or birthright, they ended up having to go anywhere else. They got splintered and fractured and spewing across the galaxy into these coverts or these cells of Mandalorians on these different worlds, because their world was perceived to be destroyed or at least toxic.
Poisoned, yeah, literally poisoned. And that was one of the lore, that not only is it destroyed and everything turned to glass, but it's also a poisonous atmosphere. It was almost like a tale that was told after the Great Purge. So almost as if planted, like, just do not ever go there. Quarantine planet, do not visit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, wouldn't it be wild if, like, nothing happened to it? And the Empire was spreading that propaganda?
Imagine.
Oh boy.
Mandalorian Season 3 predictions. Mandalore has regained its flora and fauna and is a thriving planet.
Star Tours is going to go there. It's going to be fine.
Oh my gosh, imagine.
I can imagine quite a bit.
You can imagine quite a bit. Wait, are your feet up on the chair? No. Okay.
Of course they are. They're on the ladder, actually.
There you go. Nice.
Which I wouldn't put it past them, because the Empire's a bunch of jerks.
True. And propagandists, for sure.
Right.
So that would be right up their alley.
Oh, boy. So then throughout The Mandalorian, then you have, Moff Gideon being like, that place is toast, which of course he would say.
Right.
And then the armor with these stories. But Din's like, but if no one's there, then how do we even know?
That's very true. And he's got the question of, well, and that was the end of episode 1, was I'm going to go find out.
Right. Because, how do we know if it's toxic if no one's there and no one's been there?
That traveler that picked up a piece of glass that had the Mandalorian writing on it. Well, this traveler survived. Who's this traveler? We don't know.
Right.
But he was one of
probably somebody imbued with Night Sister magic. Yeah.
Or, Purgil. Who knows?
Or it's Babu Frick.
Babu Frick. Hey! Look at the speed! Ooh!
Hey, that baby! Oh, no. So it'd be interesting to see. I had thought that when Din Djarin was coming by to go to Mandalore, that he was actually going to go to Mandalore. Silly me. In The Mandalorian, to have the Mandalorian go to Mandalore would be too ridiculous.
Tricks are for kids. Silly rabbit.
It'd be interesting to see the planet proper, one, in live action for the first time.
Right, yes.
Not like in flashbacks or some lame nonsense. But also what has become of it. Because you're talking about, you've got, the last time we've seen it was before, I guess, in Rebels.
Yes.
So you've got 20 years.
Yep.
Since we've seen Mandalore in any respect. So it'd be interesting to see what it looks like geographically. Yeah. And also, kind of what resources it has and whether or not the underground jacuzzis are still bubbling up for our buddy Din here to cleanse his soul. A couple Our Fathers, a dip in the jacuzzi, and he's all set.
Exactly. It truly is. And the implications for the rest of, this show for sure, The Mandalorian, but also galaxy-wide at this point, if there is a resurgence of the planet Mandalore, like you said, which is a wild idea to think about, where if indeed this was all just like a ruse, basically, and here we have Bo-Katan sitting on her empty throne on Kalevala, because that's like the home planet of her house, when she could be sitting on the throne of Mandalore, without the Darksaber, of course, but they're all avoiding it like the plague. It would be huge for the shifting winds in this time period for sure, and would have implications for the sequel trilogy, of course.
Could you imagine the backlash from the Mandalorians that are scattered about upon finding out that they were lied to by the Empire?
Gosh. Oh my gosh.
They'd be pissed.
Yes, they would. What an interesting thought, though. Wow.
Yeah, that's why I said it.
we may have to do an addendum to this episode once the season ends, or who knows where it could happen. But
now let's just do another episode.
Well, we're going to have an episode with Michael and Dale. We're going to talk about the entire.
That's true. The whole season.
Exactly. So we'll be able to discuss that at length with them as well. So in our tradition.
Right. I mean, I'm down for it. Those dudes are cool cats.
Yeah, we're already talking dates, so.
Oh, all right.
I'll let you know.
Oh, perfect. Thanks for keeping me in the loop.
We just tell you the dates and the talent shows up. And of course your rider's fulfilled.
And I show up too, so there's that. Oh.
That's true.
That's an implication.
Michael and Dale. Michael and Dale are the talent. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true.
Yeah. So there we go. That's Mandalore. Up until and including episode 1 of Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what happens in the coming weeks of the show. But, as for now, I think that's pretty rich and storied history.
Yes.
All right. So, speaking of rich and storied history, we're 4 years into this thing.
Yeah. We just kicked off season 5 with episode 101.
Oh, boy. Look at that. So, it all started out with our little website at ConverSWations.com. And then we added the Facebook.com/ConverSWations. We're at Swations on Twitter. We've got ConverSWations on the Instas. And let's not forget our link tree, link.tree/ConverSWations. And of course, we are founding members of the Red 5 Podcast Network at the behest of Robert LaBarre of the Jedi Temple Archives podcast. That is bio.link/Red5. And we've got the little shop there.
Yeah, we're working hard at upgrading our t-shirt site.
We're working hard at staying incognito.
Staying under the radar. Yep. And the next couple of weeks we should have some new designs, and should be fun.
I need to get a galactic what was it? Galactic Poultry Commander?
Yes.
So stupid. I love it so much.
Having said that, this is the way.
This is the way.
Hello! Welcome to ConverSWations. I'm Charles.
And I'm Pat, and this is episode 102. Through the galaxy, there are many diverse worlds, from those with lush green, snow-covered plains and dense forestry, and
Babu Frick?
Too squeezy!
Greetings, listener. Just a reminder that the podcast you just heard is a proud member of the Red 5 Network family. Red5Network.com offers you a great variety of shows you'll be sure to love. So the next time you're itching for quality content, make sure you head over to Red5Network.com. You'll find this podcast along with a whole lot more. All wings report in. It's the Red 5 Network.